Every day, thousands of flights take off across the world, guided by skilled pilots and dedicated crews. Most of these journeys unfold as routine flights, ensuring safe travel from one destination to another. But what happens when an ordinary flight turns into a nightmare? Today, we take a closer look at one such fateful journey. FlyDubai Flight 981. What was meant to be a routine night flight from Dubai to Rostov on Don turned into a harrowing battle against the elements, testing the limits of both man and machine. As the crew faced worsening weather and unforeseen challenges, their experience, training, and decision-making were put to the ultimate test. What went wrong? Could this disaster have been prevented? Join us as we unravel the story of Flight 981 and the critical lessons it left behind. It is the flight crew, but what happens when a normal trip turns into a nightmare? Today, we take a look at such a flight, which is a voyage that is full of unforeseen problems that push the crew to their limits. Flying on March 18, 2016, it was planned that Dubai Flight 981 would be a regular night flight from Dubai to Rostov on Don. The aircraft, which was a modern Boeing 737, was prepared for departure under the clear, starlit sky of Dubai. The crew, which was experienced and well-rested, anticipated a standard flight. However, nature had other plans at Dubai International Airport. The evening was as busy as usual, with passengers boarding at the last minute, cargo being loaded, and pilots performing their final checks. The atmosphere was filled with a sense of peaceful routine, the sort that promises a comfortable journey ahead. However, nobody knew that this flight was going to be anything other than an ordinary flight. Flight number 981 from Dubai was not only another number on the departure board, rather it was a bridge between Dubai and Rostov on towns, which are located about 2,600 kilometers away. This flight was scheduled to complete the distance in slightly more than 4 hours while cruising through the night skies. Two highly trained pilots were present in the cockpit at all times. The captain, who was 38 years old and had approximately 6,000 hours of flight time under his belt, had traveled across multiple countries and experienced a great deal of weather. Over 5,800 hours of flying experience were brought by his co-pilot, who was 37 years old and from Spain. He had flown everything from little Cessnas to larger ATRs, and now he was flying the Boeing 737. Although it was only 6 years old, their aircraft, a Boeing 737-800, was a workhorse of modern aviation. It was outfitted with the most advanced navigation and safety features, such as a sophisticated predictive wind shear warning system, which was an essential ally in the fight against the unpredictability of the forces of nature. This system, along with advanced head-up displays for the captain, provided critical information directly in the line of sight, blending technology with visibility to enhance safety fly. Dubai had equipped this 737 with enhancements suited for its varied destinations, acknowledging the specific challenges posed by airports like Rostov-on-Don. Known for its tricky wind patterns and less than ideal weather conditions, this destination required pilots to be not just skilled, but highly adaptable as Flight 981 taxied onto the runway. The engines roared to life, ready to conquer the skies. Both the crew and the aircraft were prepared, or so it seemed. But as every aviator knows, the sky is the ultimate arbiter capable of changing fates in mere moments. Before every flight, a critical ritual unfolds away from the passenger's eyes, the pre-flight briefing for Flight 981. This was not just routine, but a crucial strategy session. The weather forecast for Rostov on Don was at the top of the priority list. The crew went over the particular procedures that are required for the Russian Federation. These procedures included adjustments for flying at different altitudes, measurements in dealing with variable airport pressure settings. Additional topics that were raised by the pilots included the airport's reputation for abrupt wind shears and its extremely shallow water. When it comes to approaches, the glide slope is reserved exclusively for captains. Landing zone armed with knowledge and fortified by rigorous training, the crew headed to their aircraft. It was just before 9:45 p.m., and the bustling atmosphere of Dubai International faded behind them as they stepped into the cockpit of their Boeing 737, with all preparations complete. Flight 981 lifted off into the night sky. The initial phase of the flight was smooth, The Boeing 737 ascending gracefully to its cruising altitude, at the same time that the cities below became insignificant. The tranquility of the flight was accompanied by the turbulent weather that was waiting for them at their destination. As they cruised through the cockpit, which was a calm sea of glowing instruments and soft radio chatter, the pilots navigated through the darkness, with each dial and readout serving as a testament to the aircraft. The craft's advanced engineering, but even the most advanced technology has its limitations when it comes to dealing with the unpredictable nature of the weather. With each nautical mile that the aircraft travels, the aircraft's capabilities are limited, drew closer to its destination, and the tension began to build. What was waiting for them was more than just a routine landing. It was a test of their abilities, the capabilities of their aircraft, and their capacity to deal with the unexpected. As Flight 981 approached Rostov on the sea, the calm sky that had been present since their departure gave way to menacing clouds and erratic winds. Strong westerly winds with gusts of up to 29 knots, rain showers, and the possibility of thunderstorms loomed over their destination, and the crew knew they were in for a challenging journey. The crew requested the most recent weather updates from Rostov, hoping for good news but preparing for the worst. The reports were far from reassuring. The crew remained calm and focused throughout the landing process, even though the weather was getting worse. They went over their approach procedures, discussed the possibility of wind shear, and made preparations for the possibility of a go-around, which is a maneuver that has the purpose of aborting the landing and climbing back into the air. As they got closer to Rostov-on-Don, the aircraft started to experience turbulence. The ride, which had been pleasant in the past, was now a struggle against the elements. The Boeing 737, despite its advanced systems, was being tested by the unpredictability of nature. Wind shear, which is characterized by a sudden change in wind speed and direction, is one of the most dangerous conditions that pilots can encounter, particularly during landing. The predictive wind shear system that was installed on board the aircraft scanned the rain. Laden skies ready to alert the crew at the first sign of trouble. Both pilots were on high alert. The captain, utilizing the head-up display, kept a close eye on their approach path, while the first officer managed the communications and monitored the instruments. Despite the turbulence, they continued their descent, prepared for whatever lay ahead. The runway was now in sight, but the path to a safe landing was fraught with peril. The crew's training and preparation were about to be put to the ultimate test as they braced for the final approach amidst the swirling winds and driving rain. As FlyDubai 981 descended toward Rostov-on-Don, the pilots focused intensely on the approach. The runway was visible, but the turbulent air made the plane shudder and sway. Suddenly, a warning pierced the cockpit. Go around wind shear ahead. The predictive wind shear warning system had detected dangerous conditions ahead. Without a moment's hesitation, the captain called for a go-around. This wasn't just a routine go-around, it was a wind shear escape maneuver requiring maximum thrust and precise control. The engines roared as the thrust levers were pushed forward and the aircraft climbed away from the runway. The crew worked in perfect sync following their training to escape the invisible threat of wind shear. For a moment they were safe, but the ordeal was far from over. After escaping the wind shear, the crew decided to enter a holding pattern, circling above the airport to wait for the weather to improve. They had enough fuel to wait, thanks to the tankering decision made back in Dubai. While in the holding pattern, the pilots monitored the weather closely. They discussed their options, debating whether to attempt another landing or divert to an alternate airport. Meanwhile, an Aeroflot flight made 2 unsuccessful attempts to land and eventually diverted, confirming the severity of the conditions. Despite the challenging weather and the recent go-around, the captain believed they could land safely. He decided to wait for a break in the storm and then attempt another approach. The crew's training and experience gave them confidence, but the unpredictable weather was an ever-present threat as the minutes turned into hours. The storm showed little sign of relenting. The crew, determined to complete their mission, prepared for another descent into Rostov-on-Don. The next approach would be critical, a true test of their skill and resolve after circling for nearly 2 hours. The storm showed signs of easing slightly with renewed determination. The crew of FlyDubai 981 prepared for a second approach. They recalculated their landing speeds, reviewed their proceed process, and braced themselves for another attempt as they descended again toward Rostov-on-Don. The turbulence intensified. The captain disconnected the autopilot to gain a better feel for the aircraft. Every adjustment was critical as the plane was buffeted by the wind at 1,000 feet above the ground. The runway lights pierced through the darkness. The airplane was flying in the right direction, but the gusts of wind were relentlessly. The captain fought to maintain control of the aircraft. The first officer called out the speed and altitude, and suddenly a powerful gust pushed the plane's speed to a dangerously high level. The captain, reacting quickly, decided to initiate another go-around. This time, there was no wind shear warning, but the conditions were still dangerous. The engine surged to full thrust, and the aircraft began to climb. However, the captain's actions were now causing the aircraft to climb. A combination of exhaustion and the overwhelming stress of the situation led to the nose of the plane pitching up steeply, and then the captain pushed it down sharply. This sudden maneuver created a near weightless sensation in the cockpit, which disoriented the captain, and the first officer, who sensed that something was wrong, also became disoriented. The captain made a key error while continuing to trim the aircraft's nose down, which resulted in the jet entering a steep dive. The plane then accelerated rapidly, and the ground proximity warning system became blurry. The captain screamed out, "Pull up, pull up!" But the confusion only increased as the plane rose. Terrain pulled up, but it was too late. In less than a minute, the plane plunged towards the earth. The crew, despite their best efforts, could not regain control at 4:41 a.m. FlyDubai 981 crashed near the runway, ending the lives of all 62 people on board. The aftermath of the crash was devastating. Emergency response teams rushed to the site, but there were no survivors. The impact had been catastrophic, leaving a deep scar both physically and emotionally at Rostov. On Don, investigators from the Russian Interstate Aviation Committee, along with international experts, began their painstaking work. The voice recorder and flight data recorder from the cockpit, which are commonly known to as the black boxes, were recovered, revealing essential information. Indications that can help us comprehend the catastrophe. Following an examination of the data, several serious mistakes were discovered. There were several important elements, including the captain's spatial disorientation and perplexity throughout the go-around. The acts of the crew, which were driven by excessive stress and weariness, were found to be the cause of the unfortunate event, according to the investigators. One of the primary factors that led to the accident was the somatographic illusion, which is a sensory illusion that can take place during rapid acceleration in low visibility. It gives pilots the impression that the aircraft is pitching up when in fact it is not, which can lead to improper control inputs. Because of this illusion, the captain most likely pushed the nose down, giving the impression that he was preventing a stall from occurring. Several deficiencies in training for such disorienting scenarios were also brought to light by the investigation. Recommendations were made to enhance pilot training to better manage stress and handle spatial disorientation during critical flight phases. Additionally, the communication barriers with air traffic control were examined. Poor English proficiency among certain controllers was a contributing factor in misunderstandings that occurred during crucial periods. As a result, improving language training for controllers became a priority. The terrible fate of flies. In addition to serving as a memorial to the passengers and crew members who lost their lives on that tragic night in aviation, Dubai 981 acts as a powerful reminder of the unexpected nature of flying and the significance of rigorous training and clear communication. It also serves as a monument to the people who lost their lives. The skies require us to be respectful and vigilant, and they serve as a reminder that even when we are performing everyday tasks, we must always be ready for the unexpected. We encourage you to subscribe to our channel if you find this story to be intriguing. We will provide you with other in-depth examinations of aviation incidents. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. What are your thoughts on this incident?